Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of I Am Legion for Dying Light 1 and 2, and I am Jason the creator, and I wanted to talk to you about the 1.2e update that just dropped. So I've been working the last couple of days into the week earlier trying to get this map overhaul update out, and maybe some of you saw my stream that's been going out and have seen how I've been working on it, but I did finally get that update out. It's kind of been another very long day of trying to make sure that this code worked. A lot of testing went into this, but I didn't get everything. So I'm really excited to get this update out to you guys, but I do know that there could be a bug or two that could be with this release. And what that means is not crashes, nothing like that, but rather there could be an invisible viral out there. There could be a zone that's maybe having some weird spawn issues. I was not able to go to every part of the map and test this solution out. So I need your guys' help to go out and just verify, if you find an issue and you're part of the Discord community. If you're not part of the Discord community, the Nexus reporting system actually takes a very long time and it doesn't offer me a lot of options for providing feedback or really assisting you guys. So if you're going to leave me a comment, if you're going to supply me a bug, please join the Discord community and provide a couple of things. If you can provide, for example, a save game that actually has like a pin, you could drop a pin into the world and say specifically at this location, hit save on the game, upload that save game to me on the Discord, and that allows me to immediately go to that location and test the exact issue that you report. If you're having crashes or any issues like that, please include a crash log. There's really not much I can do even if you describe the whole situation. Unless I see what's happening underneath the hood, I can't actually fix that problem, and that's where the Discord community, so we're almost at 1,000 members. It's getting very close. A lot of active members on the Discord and people willing to come in and try to help you through your solution. So if you do have questions, you do have concerns, go ahead and join the Discord community, and I promise you that we'll get you fixed and back running very quickly. I will go ahead and put this out there again. This mod does not support the cracked or hacked versions of the game. This is for official only, and it will continue to stay that way as this mod will continue to get updated pretty much within 24 to 48 hours of official releases. Unless I'm sick or out or traveling for work, I'm going to continue to update this mod as the official updates come. So let me go ahead and just go back to the actual code here and what we're doing, or what this update does. So what I've done is gone zone by zone across the entire map, and I've supplied the map inside both the manual and the installer version. So you should have this map that I'm showing here. And what that does is it provides information of what the code designators are for each zone. So let me go ahead and talk about this a little bit. So basically, on the map, you have these certain zones that I originally was kind of confused by the numbering inside the code, and it didn't make a lot of sense. And then later, once I started to learn more about it, I realized some of these things are not really correlated correctly. Some of these things are not based on, if you have like 1 through 9, you assume, oh, as the story's progressing, these are like the chapters. Not always. So what I've done is I've gone in and said, okay, if you're playing the base game, if you've made a decision in the game, and if you're playing New Game Plus, I want to create custom content for each one of those stages so that as you return to these areas, custom code will fire and it will actually give you a more diverse and interesting experience as we go. Now, this was not all implemented in this 1.2e update, but the core foundation was built. And what this will allow me to do is move much faster here in the future to go ahead and get in things like that Bandit overhaul. Once that hits, we'll have warring Bandit factions and different groups out in the world that I want to actually go zone by zone and give them a place to live in the world. So anyway, so on to this. So I've also started the painful process of going in and splitting out all of my code from the vanilla code so that as these updates roll out, I'm no longer updating the main vanilla file, I'm updating my specific file. And this isn't true of all my code just yet, but it's heading that direction, because what I've realized is that as people are reporting more issues with quests, as people are reporting more issues with core content, I want to try to make it to where the custom content is getting injected into the game so that if you're playing a quest and you have that one AI that's supposed to behave one very specific way, it's no longer modified directly by my work, but rather hopefully I can keep some of the quest AI dumb and continue to make the open world AI more intelligent, because it always comes down to that, like, you play that stealth mission where essentially the NPCs are kind of idiots and they're supposed to not see you, but the way I'm coding everything, they'll see you because you're not even in the tall grass kind of thing. So continuing to work on this and balance, your feedback is much appreciated here. It is not a perfect version, but it is heading in that direction, and your guys' feedback is going to help me there. So this update is a community-based update. So what I've done here is the amount of feedback that I've gotten over the last year, I'm about to say years, but year feels like years, over the last year, is that people wanted the ability to go in and say, hey, I really want demolishers in the world. Hey, I really want the GRE experiments to be inside the world when a chase starts, and all these different features. And so because of that, what I've done is I've written a system for you. Now, I will warn you, it's bulky, and I really tried. I mean, I wasted like an entire day trying to figure out how I can make this more streamlined so that it was not as chunky as it is. And alas, I could not. So what we have here, if you go inside the mod, so let's go ahead and pull the mod up here so that you can walk with me through some of these files. As you go through these files, more and more of my files will have an underscore IALR. And what that means is that that is a custom code that is custom logic very specific to the mod that is being injected into the game that is not supposed to overwrite anything vanilla. So it's kind of broken apart. An example of this, and the tool that I'm getting ready to talk about and that is written for you guys, is this AI preset pool underscore IALR. And what this is, you can see it's actually, it's larger than the original now. That makes me sad. So if you open this file, use your notepad, use whatever tool you want. And what this is it's now reached 13,000 lines worth of code. Again, I apologize. I was not trying to make it this bloated. This is by necessity only, and so I do apologize. So how this is going to work is that when you open this up, I've got a basic zone example right there at the start, that this is the prologue. Once you enter the city and you're following Hakon across the city, this zone is actually what is being used, or this spawn table is what is being used for that encounter. And this one is very specific because it's basically very purposely dumbed down, because if you go in here and start adding a ton of content to this specific part, people will start to complain, I can't complete the tutorial, the game's too hard. So this is really meant to keep things easy starting out so that you can complete that quest. Once you hit that next level though, you're actually inside Trinity, which is zone 2. So if we see here on the map, that's where we head to next with the storylines. And this is where the tool really starts to show its flex. So what we have here by zone is every single NPC infected, not even the humans yet, only the infected. This is every infected and my new custom infected listed out in one file. And what that does is it allows you to go ahead and kind of see what your options are and go in there and say, we really want to add goons to this world. Now be aware, this is using the spawn system across the world. Is actually at the start, it's populating the map, and there is a bug in that spawn code where it will latch on to special infected and it will just populate that one special infected a million times. And so be aware that some of these changes specific to the special infected may not work exactly how you're hoping. So just be aware of that, but you should be able to go in here and modify these to your own skill set, to your own desire, whatever you want really for each zone. So say for example, you want more dog tags. I know that's really the new one, is that everybody's saying, okay, with the PK reinforcement system, how can I get more dog tags in the world? Well, what is dropping these dog tags? So with this latest update, I've gone through and I've completely stripped out PK visuals from all the other representations of the biters. So the biters will not have PK specific members if they are an actual anything but a PK member. So now what you'll get is the infected peacekeepers. The infected peacekeepers armored, which those are the guys that have the heavy armor and the helmets. And then you have the infected peacekeeper women. And then down below this, you also have virals. So these virals are also peacekeepers, and they'll also drop peacekeeper loot. So what that means is that if you wanted to actually make a zone, a very specific zone, bloated with dog tags, you could very easily go in here and reduce the numbers of the weak and the fresh and the regular biters, and you could just increase the value of the peacekeepers, say 95, and that weight is going to carry through, and you'll get a whole zone populated with undead peacekeepers. And so it's kind of based on, how you want to use this tool. If you want to use it to kind of custom carve your own loot system, you can do that. If you want to do it for realism, that's the angle I'm going with it. So let me kind of explain for this first city. So based on this, let's go ahead and move this over. So based on this, what the current setup is that you have Trinity, which is a survivor city mainly around that area. And because it's a survivor city, you have more undead that are based on a populated city with women and children and men trying to hold the line against the undead. So that means you will have more children dead inside the interiors. If you do not want that feature, there's an optional to turn it off. So if you don't want children inside the game, you can check that when you hit the installer and it will remove them from the game. I get it. If you want, so as you continue to go through here, you'll actually have less infected show up inside this zone. So at day or night, this zone is meant to be an easier starting area. And where this is really going to come into play is as the base building update gets released to the public, this is where I really want to allow players to start to flex and gather the supplies to start their base. And so as they start to gather these supplies, you start to move north. And because of these lines, I kind of wanted to make it very clear that if you cross these lines, things could get hairy very quickly. So because of that, you kind of need to be paying attention to where you're going inside the world. In the future, maybe I can even throw glow sticks or something to actually show visual information along those lines so you actually know these are no-go areas in the city. I'm really excited to see what could come from that, but we'll continue to see how that goes. So that's Zone 2. So Zone 2 allows you to explore a little bit, go enjoy the city, try to loot, and use those interiors. Now, interiors for this mod are still based on, during the day, you don't want to go into these interiors with the baseline settings. However, I have the config open here on the left. If you do not like some of the balancing in the mod, I highly encourage you, please use the documentation that's provided on the Nexus for learning how to install the mod, and then also use the config. That config is going to allow you to get away with a ton of options inside this game, including the density of the interior. So I still receive that question of, well, hang on, I tried to go into an interior and do a takedown, and it woke up everybody in the room. Well, that's based on proximity. So if you have a room filled with infected and you perform a takedown on an infected standing next to another infected or even close by, and he screams on the way down, and this is mainly because they made it play a sound when you actually do a takedown, they do a last breath gurgle. That, don't blame me, that's realistic for the game. So on falling down, they make a noise, and if those zombies are in that area, it will wake them up. Now, you don't like this, right? You want to have more stealth. You want to be able to go through that entire interior and wipe out all these biters during the day. Fine, not a problem. Head over to the config file. You're looking for spawn and density, and then underneath that are the interiors. Go ahead and turn these down to whatever you want them to be. You can do something like, for the easier areas, you could do something like 0 and 4, 0 and 10. And what that means is as you travel around the world, some areas will be completely empty. Some places will have 10 enemies inside them. Sometimes you'll have a good mix of those. And so please balance the game how you want using the mod. That's what it's there for. Don't get discouraged just because, the game's too difficult. That's the whole reason I'm making all of these features, is to allow you to play, at least if you play the vanilla version of the game, and and you want to try out all these features, please check out the vanilla version of the game, and please try the casual version of the mod. It is as close as it gets to the vanilla without getting into the difficulty and more challenging things. If you want the new special infected, though, you do need to go up, well, if you want the new volatiles, you need to go up to at least Survivor, because those suckers will take you out quick. So if you want those guys in the game, you need to go up to Survivor or higher. So anyway, back to this. Another example of a zone. We have Zone 1 down in the south side of the first map. That is a PK zone. So what that means is that you will have more undead that are PK based. You'll have on the interiors, you'll have more PK representing where they tried to take back interiors and failed. And so it kind of starts to tell a little bit of a more narrative story of the PK trying to take back the world, and that failed. You'll have more patrols in this area, and it will be more heavily patrolled, and also lots of UV flares flying around the map in this zone. So if you're looking for those dog tags and you don't want to have to go in here and do reconfiguration, currently Zone 1 and Zone 12 are the best places on the map to find dog tags. For the first map, Zone 3 is considered a bandit area. The storyline that I'm going with here is that the bandits have taken over the city during the day, but they're also not really caring about the interiors. They don't want to risk their own men, so the interiors are pretty heavily populated. I've brought back the feature to where hives should be able to be found inside the world now, so you should be able to find a hive and volatiles inside the interiors. What that means is that you could stumble into a building that actually has a hive, and it can start screaming, and it can bring down the map on you in that location. So please be aware. That's going to be true of Zone 3 and Zone 4. So Zone 3, like I said, is more of a bandit area, while Zone 4 is considered an infected zone. It's completely not owned by any other faction, and it's taken over. You will occasionally spot survivors in this area in different groups, but it is a highly infected, highly dangerous zone. So as you start to build up your expertise and you're leveling up your character, be aware that Zone 4 is meant to be more difficult. So the further into Zone 4 you wander, the more likely you are to die. So be warned. Going down to the second city, I'll try to keep this a lot shorter and not go into as much detail, but essentially Zone 5, Zone 9, Zone 6, Zone 8, and Zone 7 are essentially the same thing as 3 and 4. They're more untamed or wild areas, and so you're more likely to find different diverse groups in that area, more of up for grabs and neutral zone kind of complex for the humans, and then more deadly for the infected that rule that area of the map. Zone 10 is survivors. They've taken out the area. They've cleaned up a lot of it. You'll have less spawns, and you'll have less interior nightmare to deal with. Zone 12, once again, the wharf is considered PK owned, so you'll have more patrols, and then you'll have more undead PK wandering that area where they've fallen while trying to do so. So I think that pretty much covers most of these core areas of the map. Now down below that, we also have the flooded areas of the map. So the flooded areas of the map now have the new swamp biome introduced to it, and what I've tried to do is level this out now that I'm aware of how the zones actually are set up. You'll have less of those swamp infected in Zone 3, and then once you get down to 2 and 3, it will be heavily populated with the undead and with that swamp biome. Along with this, you now have the ability, based on the storyline, to end up with swamp infected moving into the city. So you do have the opportunity for the new day stalkers, which are the volatiles that have mud all over them. They are supposed to be crawling out of these areas, and so you will find more of them in this lower part of the city. The same is true of actual swamp zombies, so those have migrated out of the swamp and have actually come into the city. So you may encounter a couple of different swamp zombies inside those areas, not too many. You can always turn these off in the config, that's what it's there for. So along with this long list, what I would recommend is that for any zone that you want to change, what I recommend is just searching for this yellow tag. So if I want to go in here and change something, so let's do this R2 0 or 1 zone 5. If we go in here and we'll do a search for this file, and let's say R2 6 zone 10. And you'll see here immediately it'll bring up our zone 10 New Dawn Park, and then you'll find underneath this one, you'll find first, if you're going to play this in the daylight and it's not a new game plus, this is the generic setting that you'll find for this area. Down underneath that, you'll find the flooded, which is if you've drained the swamp. Down underneath this is Old Villador, or sorry, not Old Villador. There's actually a typo in there. It's not Old Villador, this is Villador, and it's the New Game Plus. So if you select New Game Plus, this is the spawn group that will spawn if you're doing a New Game Plus. Down underneath that is the actual night. So if you go down here, you'll actually see all the different zombies that can spawn at night now. And I've made sure to include all the different new AI that I've introduced as well. So feel free to add those to the spawn groups at night. Actually, it looks like a couple of these are still turned off. So I will have to go in here and probably turn on a couple more of these for the actual infected at night. But this is where, again, balancing this and trying to get all these details added in, it's going to be slow progress. But the idea is that we have to remember that this is the actual spawn tables. So with the spawn tables, they can be randomly spawned across the map. And then there's also the encounters. So the encounters will still spawn. So just because we don't have it in the spawn doesn't mean you won't get a ton of them through the encounters. So I'm still waiting to see how that balances out. Please give your feedback. Let me know what your thoughts are, and we'll continue to balance that out in the file. So additionally, a couple of things, just a couple of side notes. So I have gone through, as I mentioned in the notes, all the biters have been updated. There are new virals added to the world. So it's around 80 new virals meant to represent the fallen peacekeepers, bandits, and renegades. There is an invisible viral inside the game currently. So mea culpa, I'm working on it. I will find him and narrow down who that is that's showing up invisible. Hopefully that will not happen too much with this new balancing. Please let me know, but I am on that one. As far as the new infected, I've also tried to go in here and really set this up to be very realistic. And so I am looking for your feedback. And also, this is an excellent time for people to go and create new versions of this file and share them in the config. There will be some changes coming soon, but really the exciting part about this is that these are all the optional new content, completely custom. So any new update to the vanilla content will never break this. What will break it is me. And so as long as I don't change the naming, from here on out, I can go in here and add or change any spawn group under here, and you can as well. And that will allow us to actually work together to balance this out and change and create new configs without actually breaking or upsetting the balance. So I don't plan on updating any of the naming systems. That's actually where I hate that this Old Villador actually got left in there. It's not Old Villador, this section is Villador, but I'm going to let that one go just because I don't want to mess it up from here. So all the naming is set up. Feel free to make your own custom versions of this. And here in the future, as I put out updates, sure, I may go in and tweak some numbers, but if you really balance things how you want it, use this file to inject into the game and then continue to modify the default one as well, because the default one, the original AI presets, is going to be more for the actual quests and different unique encounters and that kind of thing. Those have not been brought over to this, and so because of that, you can still make edits into the AI preset pool and those will still apply. The one thing to be aware of though is that these sections in here that are specific to the open world section, most of them are called these D0, 1 through 9, and the flooded areas, those are what have moved over to the preset pools. So there still are a lot of other pools here, but Dust, GRE, open world content, that all now lives inside this file. You can modify to the heart's content, and like I said, it should stand the test of time here. It shouldn't get modified too much here in the future. And if anything changes, what should get changed is adding new types of zombies and then tweaking some numbers. So hopefully we can try to maintain this together and keep this updated. Okay, last but not least, I've also gone through and done several bug fixes for the actual volatiles. There is still a vanilla bug in there for the volatiles where they are still being affected at night, just like they would in the daytime. They're still trying to run away and find a dark place to hide in at night. I don't know why this is happening, and I'm still trying to look into the code. Essentially, I think what happened is that something has switched to where that's being applied even at night. I don't know why. And I've tested out with vanilla, and I can cause the same thing to happen in vanilla. So I don't know why that's happening, but hopefully that will get hot fixed by the team here on the next major update. We'll see. So that's been fixed. And then additionally, I went in, and so for the Skinner outfits, for the Volatile, for the Banshee, and a couple others, any visuals that you had for the first person, I did leave it to where you couldn't see those. And so I have gone in and added those as well. And so those have also been updated. So you should be able to see those first person. Additionally, last but not least, I will go ahead and mention that for the inventory, I have gone through and made a pretty major update to the inventory system. You will also now find that every inventory item has now been broken apart into its own IALR file. And so because of that, what that means is that any mod that you can find on the Nexus that modifies the inventory, that modifies the outfits, those should be back up for grabs. So you should be able to modify those as long as it doesn't overwrite a core file, such as, so currently what I'm using right now is the import system to import these files in. I can't guarantee this across every mod, but what this should is allow us to A, update the vanilla files much faster, and B, continue to do the same thing that I'm suggesting with this other file here, is make changes specific to the core vanilla files, and those won't get updated here in the future. So again, this is my way of saying, thank you, community, for all your feedback. I really appreciate your guys' support. Huge shout out again to everybody that's jumped onto the Patreon and is continuing to pour into the Discord. Thank you guys so much for your support. I truly appreciate it. And I'm going to continue to support you guys as you give your feedback. Just let me know how it's going. And I really want you guys to be able to make your own spin-off versions or whatever you want to do. Let's get more content into the game, and let's get our friends and start playing on the weekends. All right, guys, thank you so much. Look forward to your feedback, and I'll catch you guys next time. Happy gaming.